everybody. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. My name is Gabriel, and I will be today's session's host. And today we have a very special guest, His Grace Paramshreya Das, who joined ISKCON in the year of 1989 when he was age 17 in Germany after he dropped out of grammar school. And he moved on to the Brahmacharya ashram in 1990. And he had a bus program and Srila Prabhupada's book distribution in 1990 up until 1995. Since 1993, he's been working together with his god brother, Shivatma Das, one of Germany's most successful book distributors in the 1990s in various projects, now for 28 years. Preaching program, visiting people in their homes from 1995 up until 2005. And he is the founder of Guni Times print magazine in 1997 and the online version since 2001. He has the most visited German-speaking Vaishnava blog, and he gives lectures in schools and universities since 2004. And he's the member of the Krishna Council since 2018. And he started a podcast that directly translates to My Daily Bhagavatam in 2019 with now more than 450 episodes on YouTube. And he's working as a state recognized lecturer in German primary and grammar schools. And he is the official representative of Hinduism at the annual European School Network at St. Marienthal Monastery since 2015, with 60 students from 8 different European countries. That's impressive. And before we start, I'd just like to go over the ground rules. Please, could everybody kindly please switch on their cameras at all times during the session? That would be much appreciated. But please mute your mics up until 11:15, whereby we'll be taking questions and comments. And please raise your hand with the raise hand button in order to be unmuted, and you can raise your question then on YouTube and on Facebook or in the Zoom chat panel where you can type your question out. And then we'll be attended to thereafter. And without further ado, let's start the class. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, can you hear me? So thank you very much for your kind invitation and introducing me so nicely. I feel nearly embarrassed, and yeah, it's a big honor to me to be at your WuSA Wake Up South Africa show. I like the title very much. I think in Germany we should also have a WuJer or something, Wake Up Germany. So first of all, I want to, when I was invited, I thought South Africa, that is pretty cool. I was never really in touch with people, or even much nicer with devotees from South Africa. So maybe I want in the beginning, because the title was something about inspiration, I hope I can inspire you with this. I want to describe a little bit what a meaning South Africa has to me. So I was born in 1972, and I remember that already my parents, when I was a child, my parents, when I was a little older to understand certain things, South Africa was always a topic, because my parents, they were, we call them now, they were on the political left. I think you have something similar in South Africa, left and right. So my parents, they were, at that time, they were against apartheid. And at one point, I asked them, what the heck is apartheid? And then they explained to me that in South Africa, you have black people and you have white people. And there is a separation. Black people, they cannot go into the same bus like white people, or sit on the same, what it is called, in the park, where you can sit on a bank. You cannot sit there. When you are a black person, you cannot sit with a white person on the same bank. So from second zero, I found this pretty, totally, no way, this is totally uncool. And so we saw some news in the television, and there were sometimes riots in South Africa and people were shot. So this was a big topic in Germany in my youth in the 1980s. I even remember that with my whole school class, we went to a cinema, a movie. I forgot the name, something with burnt desert or something. I should look it up. It was a movie about South Africa, a real blockbuster about the problems there, especially black people had at that time. So my sympathy was always for the black people of South Africa. And so then, of course, a big name then appeared, Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela was also in the news in Germany very often. So this so much. Another thing I want to tell is how much black people play a role in my Krishna consciousness. I am surprised myself to find out that maybe the first, we call it Vatma Pradashaka Guru, a very significant person who is teaching you a lesson, a spiritual lesson. We call such a person in Sanskrit Vatma Pradashaka Guru. He's the person who shows you the way to the bhakti process. And I think maybe that person who gives the biggest push was nobody else than Muhammad Ali. You might know, the famous boxer from the USA, who also was always, I think, standing for civil rights, that black people have the same rights than white people. So I can remember, it's quite funny. My mother, she forbid me to watch television after I come from school. So she was working. She was in a kindergarten, working at a kindergarten. So she knew that I was alone after school at home. So she very much, she gave me this non-permission. You will not watch television when you come from school. You first do your homework, and when everything is done and when I come home, then maybe you are allowed to watch television. So I can't, then it was one day I came back from school. My mother was not there. And I thought, yeah, let's watch some television. Maybe it was just a sign of protest. I was maybe 12 years old or 13 years old. So I switched on the television, but I had to open the house door a little bit so that I could hear my mother coming, so I have enough time to switch off the television. So I switched on the television. And who was there? Muhammad Ali. An interview with Muhammad Ali. It was about 1987 or so, 88, 87, I guess. So, and as you might know, Muhammad Ali, he got a disease called, I think, Parkinson. And he was always a little bit trembling, and he could only speak very slowly. So then I know, oh, this is Muhammad Ali. I heard about him. At that time, he was not anymore, you know, amongst the big boxer championships. But I know his name from my parents and from that generation. They always spoke about Muhammad Ali. And so I was very curious. So now, and the question was also excellent. The interviewer asked him, so Muhammad Ali, now you are in a retired position. What are you doing now when you are not anymore active in sports? And I thought, oh, let's hear. And then, because Muhammad Ali, he needed time due to his disease, he spoke very slowly. And now listen, I am preparing for my next life. I thought, wow, this is very special. And then the interview partner, he asked the next question. Oh, you believe in a next life? And I thought, oh, this is so interesting. I really want to hear what he has to say. And then again, a big pause. Yes. And then my mother came. So I had to switch off the television. And I remember for the next weeks, I was walking around, oh my God, there is a next life. And just this, yes, I believe in the next life, just this one word, yes, was so convincing to me that it was really in my head and in my heart that as soon there is an opportunity, I want to check out what is this about a next life and how to prepare for a next life. So that was always resonating. And so 1 or 2 years later, I met for the very first time a book distributor, a Hare Krishna book distributor on the street. I never heard about Hare Krishna before. So he showed me a Bhagavad Gita, and I asked him, what is the topic of this book? And then he said, one topic is reincarnation, you know, about the next life. And then, wow, there it is. So I immediately, put all my coins together, and somehow that book distributor, although I was giving way too less for that book, he kindly gave me the Bhagavad Gita. And so then, to make the story short, I then, with 3 friends, the very first time alone, we were 16 years old, we were allowed to make holidays without parents. So I took that Bhagavad Gita with me, and it was in Greece. I started to read the Bhagavad Gita, and that totally changed my life. So now, more than 30 years later, I realized how much I am indebted to His Grace Muhammad Ali. So, and Muhammad Ali ki jai. Yeah, so, and all in all, I realized that I think Black people are, of course, we know there are jerks amongst the white people and there are jerks amongst the Black people. We all know that. But all in all, I can say that I really appreciate Black people, and I also appreciate their spiritual side. I think when, let's say in this way, when Black people do something, this is my observation, I always have the feeling they do it with their heart. And I think one example is Bob Marley. When he was on that stage, he was not a singer. Yeah, we know so many singers, thousands of singers, they go on the stage and they sing. But when Bob Marley came on the stage, it was a totally different thing. He was in his lyrics, he was sweating, and every syllable he sang, he was sweating and suffering with that syllable. So yeah, so I can only express my appreciation, and the more I am proud to be amongst of you. So I thought I have my ukulele with me, and I want to sing a Hare Krishna song to a South African melody. I listened to it when that whole apartheid issue was very prominent. Let me see. Yeah. So you may know all the song. I don't know. You are not all of my generation, but there was a singer at my time. His name was Eddie Grant, and he sang a melody. Give me hope, Joanna. And I like that song so much. And still, when I listen to songs, you know, when you are in the supermarket, you are forced sometimes to listen to, at least in Germany, I don't know how it is in South Africa, but when you are in Germany, there is always a supermarket radio turned on. So you go through the supermarket and you listen to the pop songs. So sometimes there is a pop song, I think you know that feeling. Oh, it's somehow catchy, it's a nice melody. And these pop songs, they are composed in such a way that it sticks in your head. At least that is the desire of the producer. So sometimes the melody sticks in your head, and sometimes you ask, how can I get rid of this stupid pop song melody? I want to think about Krishna and I want to chant Hare Krishna. So my solution is to somehow put the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra on that lyrics, and surprisingly it works more often than we think. So I did that. And for the Joanna, I thought, well, Joanna, Goranga. Why not Goranga? Give me hope, Goranga. So let's see if I can get it together. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And now you. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Give me hope, Goranga, hope, Goranga, give me hope, Goranga, till the morning comes. Give me hope, Goranga, hope, Goranga, give me hope until the morning comes. One more time. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Give me hope, Goranga, hope, Goranga, give me hope, Goranga, till the morning comes. Give me hope, Goranga, hope, Goranga, give me hope until the morning comes. Hare Krishna. So yeah, I think I should speak something directly about the Srimad Bhagavatam. not too much because I already spoke a lot already, but I think we have a very interesting topic, and that is the tension between freedom and safety. And I have chosen a part from the Srimad Bhagavatam I like to present to you. It is a shloka from the first canto, 6th chapter, text 37, about Narada Muni. And I read to you the Sanskrit. Sutta uvacha evang sambhasya bhagavan narado vasavi sutam amantriya vinam ranayan yayau yadrichiko munihi. And the translation is, Sutta Goswami said, thus addressing Vyasadeva, Srila Narada Muni took leave of him, and vibrating on his Veena instrument, he left to wander at his free will. And now a very, very nice, deep purport by Srila Prabhupada. Please listen. It's not very long, but it's very deep. Let me take one. Every living being is anxious for full freedom because that is his transcendental nature. Just this one sentence. Let this sink in. Every living being is anxious for full freedom because that is his transcendental nature. And this freedom is obtained only through the transcendental service of the Lord. Illusioned by the external energy, everyone thinks that he is free, but actually he is bound up by the laws of nature. A conditioned soul cannot freely move from one place to another, even on this earth, and what to speak of one planet to another. But a full-fledged free soul like Narada, always engaged in chanting the Lord's glory, is free to move not only on earth, but also in any part of the universe, as well as in any part of the spiritual sky. We can just imagine the extent and unlimitedness of his freedom, which is as good as that of the Supreme Lord. There is no reason or obligation for his traveling, and no one can stop him from his free movement. Similarly, the transcendental system of devotional service is also free. It may or may not develop in a particular person even after he undergoes all the detailed formulas. Similarly, the association of the devotee is also free. One may be fortunate to have it, or one may not have it, even after thousands of endeavors. Therefore, in all spheres of devotional service, freedom is the main pivot. Without freedom, there is no execution of devotional service. The freedom surrendered to the Lord does not mean that the devotee becomes dependent in every respect. To surrender unto the Lord through the transparent medium of the spiritual master is to attain complete freedom of life. So I think this is a very wonderful purport by Srila Prabhupada. So let us check out or investigate one tension we have here in this material world. It is the tension between freedom and safety. Suppose you have a child, and your child slowly grows up. Then we all know at a certain age, children, they demand more freedom. I want to be out longer. I want to go far away from home. So for the parents, this is always a problem, because on one hand, they want to give their child, of course, they want to give their child freedom, because they know without freedom, the child cannot develop to a full-fledged human being. On the other side, the parents are always concerned about the safety of their child. So they want to grant that the child is always safe. So I think we can all relate to that feeling, and there is a conflict. So in this material world, as soon as you go more for the freedom, you lose the safety part. You lose the safety warranty. And the more you go for the safety, to be safe and protected, that goes on cost of the freedom. So to give you one example, I live in a small town. There's only one street, one main street. And there's the discussion, should we put, I don't know if you have this in South Africa, but in Germany, sometimes we have this, they look like traffic lights, but actually this is a camera. And when the car is too fast, then the camera is switched on and registers your number plate and even your face. I have some photos from myself, from the government, not so many. So, but I have first-hand experience. So there's this discussion, should we put this on our main street? But then people will freak out, because it might happen once or twice a day that some driver is on camera and gets angry and has to pay a fee, some penalty fee. So we should give people the freedom to freely drive through our town. Yeah. So we should not put too many restrictions. But then other people say, no, our children, we have children here and they have to go to school and come back, and they often have to cross this certain road. So there's a tension. You have it in all over the world. I guess in your town or city, you have similar discussions. And so when I read this passage of Narada Muni in the first canto, we are reading every day in the morning. We are also in a podcast style. We are reading Srimad Bhagavatam. I realized that, hey, Narada Muni, he has both. He has both in full. He has the safety, the full protection of the Lord, and he has the full freedom. How cool is this? I realized this is I was not aware before about this fact. So in Srila Prabhupada's purport, he explained that actually freedom, full freedom, is the nature of the spiritual soul. But also at the same time, to be fully protected, to feel fully protected by the Lord, this is also the nature of the spiritual soul. When we are totally Krishna conscious, at every second, we feel that Krishna has an eye upon us, that Krishna protects us, that Krishna cares for us. So only on the platform of Krishna consciousness, you can combine these two values. We very much value safety and protection in this world, and at the same time we value freedom. Like I think, I don't know in South Africa the generation now, but let's say 30, 40 years ago, as I told you in the beginning, the black people, they had only very less freedom, as far as I remember. There were so-called townships. Are there still these townships? Yeah. So, but at that time, as far as I remember, the black people, they could not at one particular point of time, they were not allowed to leave their township. Is that right? And I guess this has changed now. Yeah. Okay. More or less. We all know that in the material world, nothing becomes perfect. But I think there is I also know that in South Africa, you have other problems now than maybe 40 years ago. Other problems are now very big there. So this is just for us devotees, we can learn from this. How much you try in the material world, you always will have problems. It is not our original home. But on the other side, we certainly try to make it as in harmony with Dharma. We should try it as devotees, that everyone has to have freedom, and also that everyone is protected. That should be a Krishna conscious rulership also. Yeah, these are my thoughts for today, and I would be interested to hear something from you. Let me see, here's something in the chat window. There is a movie called Cry Freedom, starring Denzel Washington. It is based on the apartheid era and the life of Steve Biko. Biko or Biko, how you pronounce it?
Yes, Biko is correct.
Biko, yeah. So I think this is African, Biko, African language. Yeah, I read one book when I was 16 about on Steve Biko. I was very moved. Hare Krishna.
I think it's possible. Thank you so much, Prabhu. And so the floor has been open. Feel free to express your thoughts, and otherwise we'll probably get another song. We still have a whole 30 minutes. So I was just really fascinated by the example you drew out in relation to freedom and safety. That, you know, in spiritual life, we talk about surrendering to God. And this surrender, just by the very word, seems contradictory to freedom. Could you say something about that? How is surrender allowing us full freedom?
Yeah, very good point. Yeah, surrender sounds very much the opposite. You are right. Yeah, very good question. In order to understand this, let me see, alleged controversy, we have to understand that, as Srila Prabhupada pointed out in his purport, that people under illusion, under the influence of the illusory energy, also called Maya, they often think, oh, I'm so free here in this material world. I can choose whether I smoke Marlboro or camel filter or the South African blend. And I can also choose a bit amongst 30 other brands. I am free. Yes. So, but an intelligent person will recognize, hey, you are totally on the wrong track. You are addicted to smoking. You are totally bound by the addiction to smoke. You are totally unfree. But under your illusion, you think that, hey, I can choose between those blends and brands. So this is the fact in the material world, that the illusory energy, on one side, she totally put us into chains, into ropes. We cannot really move so much here in this material world. But at the same time, the illusory energy gives us the impression that we are totally fine here. So, and that is because we have surrendered to the material energy. At one point of time, we turned away from surrendering to Krishna and we surrendered to the illusory energy, to Maya, which means forgetting Krishna, thinking to be God oneself, or to be the controller and enjoyer. Some people, they criticize us. You say, I want to be God here in this material world. And then we have to explain, okay, you might not speak it out in that way, but this desire to be the controller, to control so many things, to enjoy so many things, independent of God, this is nearly the same as to say, I am God. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Yeyata mang prapatyante tangstataiva bhajamyaham mama vatmanuvartante tangstataiva bhajamyaham. There he says that I reciprocate in the same amount that a soul turns to me. But the second half of this verse is even, at least for your question, even more relevant, that Krishna says, everyone walks on my path. You have only two choices: to go that path away from me, or to go that path and come near to me. So this is the only choice we have. So in both cases, we can speak of surrender. Do you want to surrender to the illusory imagination that I can enjoy and control independent of God? Or do you want to surrender to God? But then it turns out that it is not that kind of surrender that we might find in the dictionary. When we look up the dictionary for the word surrender, you will get a definition like something like we know these movies when one side has conquered the other side, then you have to show a white flag, and everyone has to throw away their weapons, and then they get into prison. They go to prison. For instance, my grandfather, he was 3 years in prison after World War II. He was in a French prison for 3 years. Others, even in Russia, they had to be in 15 years in very, very ugly prisons in the the former Soviet Union. So of course, Savya Sachin Prabhu, when we hear the word surrender, those kinds of pictures might appear. But when you surrender to Krishna, surprisingly, and Narada Muni gives maybe the best example, what happens when we surrender to Krishna. His whole life story is also explained in the first canto, how he surrendered to Krishna. And then what happened? He became Narada Muni. He could move freely everywhere, not only on planet Earth and not only in this universe, but he could even visit. We even find references in the 10th canto. He more or less, he traveled to the spiritual world. He traveled to Dwaraka, and he could move into all the 16,108 palaces and look around what's going on here. I mean, how much more freedom we can have. Give me an example of someone who has more freedom of Narada Muni. Yeah. So in this way, when we practice Krishna consciousness more and more, we will become aware that this surrender is exactly the opposite of what we experience in this material world when we have to surrender to someone or to something. So I cannot hear anyone.
Gabriel, I see something in the chat there. Maybe you can read that comment.
So there is one comment. Oh, she is from our Bhagavatam podcast group. Her name is Chit Shakti Devidasi. The simple, a single group makes songs about Bhikkhu and okay. So it's something about music. There are some songs about those heroes of South Africa.
So, I mean, any other thoughts to put before Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhu, I have a question of my own.
Yeah.
In regards to like surrendering and having freedom, how would one come to find balance between the two so as to like not have too much freedom and not have, I guess, too much surrendering? Because in a sense that I know it sounds kind of far-fetched, because in a sense that if like you surrender too much, right, and then you just like give away to Krishna, that meaning you are in the ashram of brahmacharya, right? Like how would one just fit the two, like still be like surrendering to Krishna and still exist in the physical and have somewhat freedom of the material?
Okay. So your question is how to balance. We have seen sometimes people externally, they have surrendered totally to Krishna, but then they lose their stability, their material stability, their safety in the material world. Is that in your direction? Yeah. So Srila Prabhupada always spoke about this process of Krishna consciousness. He described it as a gradual process. It is not a process where we from one second to the other. There are a few cases, very rare cases, but 99.7% for all of us, it is a gradual process. We have to slowly become Krishna conscious, experience the protection of Krishna, and understand that the material world is not our place where we get real protection. So this is a process of realizations we will have in a period of time. So we should not, in an immature state, we should not pretend that we have now totally surrendered to Krishna and artificially giving up all the stability we might have in the material world. We should rather do it in an intelligent way. The best way is to have guidance by a spiritual master or by mature devotees who are advanced, who know those pitfalls and also the nuances. And in this way, I think we can balance it. It also depends on what kind of person you are, what your nature is. You might be a person who is very much, how should I put it, who is eligible for a renounced life. And then you have persons, their nature is more to be in a grihasta ashram and to have children, take responsibility. Pardon? So this all we have to see, and also to be, for instance, a grihasta and maintain stability. That might also be a great service to Krishna, to give other souls, other devotees, other people stability, safety. It is a godly quality to protect and to give stability and safety to others. Like a Krishna conscious king, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we can hear about so many kings. Where's the Srimad Bhagavatam here? There are so many stories of Rajashis who took a lot of responsibility to protect their citizens in a Krishna conscious way, so that those citizens are mostly free from all the pains and struggles of material life, so that they can peacefully go for the process of Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.
So, Gabriel, something else in the chat? Yeah.
There's something else in the chat. Let me read it out loud. Hare Krishna, Prabhu, thank you so much for your time. What other South African musicians did you or do you like? This one comes from Jan Bhavan Temba.
I have to admit that I'm not so much into South African music. I like the African music a lot. I like, these vibes, those tunes, but I have no real clue about names. Who is the famous pop singer in South Africa? I have to apologize.
Our host, there's more in the chat, Gabriel. I think you're struggling with the camera there.
I was still fixing my camera there.
Okay.
I'm back now.
Here's one.
This one comes from Saryadia Rasa Devi Das. And it reads, Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for the class. When we start our devotional life, we may experience the regulative principles and then all the rules and regulation of practice, as outlined in the Nectar of Devotion, as severely limiting our freedom. It may even feel suffocating when we need to talk, dress, and behave in specific ways. So, how can we experience the freedom of Krishna consciousness while we are not finding the culture and regulations of bhakti natural?
So how can we experience the freedom of Krishna consciousness while we are not finding the culture and regulations of bhakti natural? Mhm. Yeah, that is true. We have in Krishna consciousness, we have a couple of rules and regulations. We have, for instance, the big four regulative principles. Interestingly, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita speaks about the so-called regulative principles of freedom, interestingly. And I think that at one point, at least in my case, I made that practical experience that, okay, there is no drinking alcohol in Krishna consciousness. So when I read that for the first time, I thought, okay, that is not so easy in a world where drinking is a part of culture. I don't know how it is in South Africa, but in Germany, Germany is famous, I think, for having more than 1,000 beer brands. So I thought this seems to be difficult, but then I tried to live without alcohol, and after a few weeks, I realized that I became a more free person. And then you like to hang out with people who have that same experience. And so first, in the beginning, it might feel a little bit troublesome, or to give up smoking. I know so many people, they like to give up smoking, but they can't. They are so addicted. But then when someone really, especially in Krishna consciousness, I found many people, then they could finally give up smoking because they found a higher taste, and they also found this feeling of freedom. I'm free of this addiction. So, yeah, it is said in the Bhagavad Gita that there are a few things that when we do them in the beginning, it tastes like poison, but then the taste turns into nectar. That is in the mode of goodness. So those activities that maybe in the beginning feel a little painful, then later they turn into happiness and nectar. So when we have some practical experience, that is what is Krishna consciousness is all about. We have at one point, we have to make a practical experience, and then it becomes very obvious that our principles, our rules are more for the development of our real, true freedom, of our spiritual freedom. So when we have that experience, I think then we are inspired to move on, to try harder. It might not work from one day to the other, but at one point, with Krishna's help and with the association of devotees, we might come to that stage.
Okay. Savyasaji Das is saying, can before that, there's somebody with a raised hand, Kulufelo Suel. Probably do you still have something to ask?
Thank you, Prabhu, for the opportunity. And Thank you for the very nice and informative class that we are having at WuSA. And thank you to Prabhu Paramshreya from Germany for sharing all that insight and, you know, how to dovetail music to, you know, consciousness and bringing yourself higher. And, you know, the song that he started with, the original of the song is sung by Eddie Grant, whom I also had a chance to actually spend some time. I'm a sound engineer by profession, by the way. And I work with a lot of artists from time to time. And Eddie Grant happened to be one of the artists that I actually spent some time with, and how he actually turns the Give Me Hope Joanna to a Hare Krishna song is actually something that, you know, I do on a regular basis, because I always like mixing songs that are talking about something else rather than Krishna. And it's actually a very good idea, and it actually, you know, puts you a step forward with regards to, you know, your belief and your progress within the Krishna consciousness movement. I also wanted to ask a question of, you know, regarding dovetailing your culture and to Krishna consciousness. Is it something that is really like doable? Because we all know that there is two types of cultures: the urban culture and the rural culture. And the rural culture is the culture that, you know, most of the people. I'm from Soweto, so a lot of people are like really looking in the rural culture for how to actually live their lives. And, you know, and they believe in the rural culture, and the rural culture is like the way, because it's a culture that actually, you know, really for most people defines where they come from and who they are really in life, you know. Dovetailing that to Krishna consciousness, is it something that is something that you can advise, you know, when a person is looking to actually get into Krishna consciousness fully? Is it something that they should actually revisit and see, and also, you know, bring themselves closer to their origin, and actually, bring it to the Krishna consciousness platform, which is where you will find yourself or want to be, you know, at the end. Thank you. Thank you.
I think I get your point.
Yes.
Yes, of course. Rural culture is something that we very much appreciate in our Krishna consciousness movement. Srila Prabhupada gave that slogan, simple living, high thinking. And he was always in favor with rural or agricultural culture in touch with nature, with the animals, with the nature, cow protection, growing our own food. This is very much highly, was always emphasized by Srila Prabhupada. And yeah, all in all, I think this should be our emphasis. On the other hand, there is a space for urban culture in Krishna consciousness. We even have that in the spiritual world. We know that Krishna is in Vrindavan with the cowherd boys, cowherd girls, and at one point he goes to Dwara, not to Dwaraka, to Mathura. And so there was also a Krishna conscious culture there in Mathura. And there were always also cities. We always find cities in the Srimad Bhagavatam. We find Dwaraka. Dwaraka is a city. We find Mathura or like Hastinapur. There are lots of description of Hastinapur in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So it is not that we become too extreme, that we demonize cities or urban culture. no, as you said, there is space to, in both areas, we can become Krishna conscious. And I give you two examples I just heard a couple of days ago. I find quite amusing, and I think I might tell you about this. I think it's not a secret thing. You have heard about the hardcore band, straight edge band Shelter, an American Krishna conscious punk band. And one famous singer is Raghunath. Raghunath also makes this podcast in New York together with Kau Stuba. And they are very successful. And they told about their stories that at one point in their youth, they had enough from their punk scene, rock and roll scene, urban scene, and they moved to a Hare Krishna rural community in Pennsylvania. And they stayed there for, I don't know, 3-4 months. And then this is what they told. At one point, they could feel that this is not their nature to be at a rural community for the rest of their life. And then they went back to their city culture, but with Krishna conscious ambitions. And that had such an impact. This might be not your generation, some of you, but this was happening 30 years ago. So many devotees were made or inspired. So many people became inspired to become devotees from they are using their urban nature in Krishna's service. So what I want to say is we should not make it to a dogma that it might be so that it is our nature to be more city type person. And I just, I think I can tell it, that Prabhupada disciple who is mainly, he is investing in this big temple in Mayapur, Ambarish Prabhu. He is the grandson, I think, of grand-grandson of Alfred Ford. And he also tried once to be part of the Alachua rural community in Florida, but then he moved back to a city nearby, Gainesville. And a friend of mine, he met him a couple of days ago, and he asked him, the last time when we saw us, you were living at this rural community in Alachua. So now you have moved to Gainesville. And he answered, yeah, it is, I'm a city boy. I'm a city boy. I can practice Krishna consciousness the best in the city, and I can also share it better in the city. So maybe just to balance this a little bit. But all in all, I want to say it again. Yes, it is our emphasis to inspire the world population to go back, not back in a way to bring old days back. Let me define it in a way, to go back in a rural community, but with a modern, progressive Krishna consciousness. That is the progressive, modern side of going back.
Hope that answered your question, Prabhu.
So
oh yes, it did. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Prabhu.
So I would like to know something about your WuSA project. Is South Africa waking up?
Slowly but surely, I may say. Slowly but surely.
How do you recognize that South Africa is slowly turning towards spiritual consciousness, towards Krishna consciousness. What should I tell my friends tomorrow when they ask, so what is happening in South Africa? What these guys have told you?
If I may, you know, what you may recognize is that a lot of my generation, Generation Z, it's just like a lot of us are slowly getting drawn to, you know, a higher taste. You know, a lot of my generation are just like tired of just like a lot of materialistic values and virtues, and we want to taste something better and bigger. So just you'll find that a lot of students are just getting into Krishna consciousness or reading about it or just posting about it even online. So that's from my end. From my end, that's where I see the growth. And Sabyasachi can tell you much more in like, you know, the bigger scale, I think.
No bigger scale, I would say we can sample those who are here if they're able to have camera on and wake up to maybe a song, then you can say South Africa is waking up. But it may not be waking up.
It's not working.
The Prabhupada said, in one sense, if you want to find out if rice is cooked, you pick up one grain in the rice, and if you feel that that's soft enough, then you can tell the whole pot is cooked. So South Africa is, you could say, almost like a European country in terms of its infrastructure, but there is a little bit of coming to the party late of the first world, that people are still just came out of a situation where they can be free to go for materialism. And so the older people who are coming out of apartheid, they really worked hard to try and give their children what they couldn't get. And so they really put those values on them to, you're free now, you're born free, all the opportunities are there for you. So there is a mood where young people are looking at getting materialism. Whereas the ones just after, like his generation is saying, they're getting to see that maybe it's not so glamorous, although they also would like to have, but they can see that it's superficial. So there's sort of a change of guard for the young ones. I would say my generation is still going for it. Those older than me, they're just thinking these ones, they didn't appreciate what we fought for. So there's opportunity at different levels. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Gabriel, what is the name of your generation? Generation Z?
Yeah, it's Z. It's Z. It's that. Yeah.
What is the meaning?
There's a thing whereby they cast each and every single generation. So there's the
Zombie.
baby boomers. There's just generation zombie because we're slaves to our phones. Probably. That just may be it. So there's Generation Y, there's Generation X, there's Generation Z, and that's us right now from like early 2000s onwards.
Okay. Interesting. Wow. I really like to visit South Africa in my life one time.
Oh, definitely.
Definitely.
When this is over, we can make arrangements.
Thank you.
There's a hand up from Kuku.
Hare Krishna, everyone. I have a question. And I would just like to be brief quickly because I have to get back. So I just wanted to maybe get my question answered because it's really been a pressing one for me. So I'm glad we had this conversation and this topic about freedom. So I'd like to also thank Prabhu for that. Okay, so my question is, I think it was Kulufelo who was talking about how, sometimes we are attached to our culture. So I really wanted to pose like an example. Let's say I am saying this. I'm saying I'm a person who really enjoys Krishna consciousness, and I love the teachings and I want to be immersed in it. But I cannot follow the rules, in a sense that I feel like I am still in control of my vices. I am still in control of drinking. I don't drink every day. I'm still fine. I can control myself. Or smoking, or partying. All of these things, I feel like I don't need to give up. It is in moderation. I feel like I'm in control of that. How does one now view a devotee like that? Is it a sense of you have your foot, one foot in, one foot out? Or does it completely have to, like, you have to get rid of all of that for you to be the devotee you're meant to be? I don't know if I've articulated myself correctly. Thank you.
Mhm. Okay. I appreciate your honesty. Yeah, I would say that I don't know if you ever have made the experience of being rid of those habits altogether. For instance, I give you an example. When I heard that, okay, in Krishna consciousness, you have to be a vegetarian, I thought, okay, let me try for 6 weeks to be a total vegetarian, because then I have an experience of what does it feel. If I only be 2 days vegetarian, or only, in the evening a vegetarian, I cannot really have that experience. So my suggestion to you would be, if you are, you said that you feel that you are still in control, you can control the exact limits, the amount. So why not make an experience to say, let me try for at least 4 weeks to be fully free of potting or smoking or drinking. And then after 4 weeks, look inside. How you are feeling? Do you feel better? Do you feel worse? Do you feel more free? Your consciousness has extended more, expanded more. So that would be my first answer, but I'm not sure if this is satisfying.
I think, what if you have tried it, and we all know the benefits and the great ecstasy we get, if we are fasting, or if we are really delving into our spirituality. We all know that it has some sort of higher taste. However, is it now going to be infringing in my spiritual life if I'm saying that I still want to occasionally drink, or at home culturally, I still would like to maybe eat meats, because meat seems to be African culture, or perceived as African culture. So is that sort of imbalance viewed as you not taking Krishna consciousness seriously. If you feel like, no, occasionally I'm a vegetarian, but occasionally I eat meat because I mean, I come from a family who eats meat. It's something that's cultural to me. I'm not gonna go to maybe like spiritual rituals that we have at home and not partake in that. And it entails meat eating, or, you know, I smoke once in a while, or I drink once in a while, all these once in a while things that, you know, people, devotees do. I just want to know what that means and represents. Can there be a balance of that?
Mm-hmm.
And us justifying it as, but that is my nature. I really am okay if I have smoked a blunt and, you know, continue about my day. I'm going to meditate later. I'm going to read the books later.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say that if you have really this higher taste of what you are also talking about, then a sign or a proof that you really have that higher taste is that you can give up the lower taste. So Srila Prabhupada once, he made this slogan, in our Krishna consciousness movement, our aim is stay high forever. Because when, for instance, when we take drugs, we might have for some minutes or hours, we might have this experience of feeling high, but then we come down from this experience. And what people mostly say then is that they feel worse than before. They feel worse. And the only way to get out of this kind of depressed or boring state is to again take the drug. So it is like a circle. So Srila Prabhupada made this point that in Krishna consciousness, we have a process, we have a spiritual lifestyle that allows us to always feel happy, always feel more or less ecstatic. And then this urge or this feeling of I need something material like drinking, we can live without, we all know that we are not dependent. Our life is not dependent on alcohol. Our life is not dependent on tobacco. Our life is not dependent on meat even. So why not giving up this? And it is said that the more you give up the lower taste, the more you have access to the higher taste. So, of course, as I said in the beginning or in the middle of our discussion, Krishna consciousness is a gradual process. That means maybe there are some habits or addictions we cannot get rid from one day to the other. But when we are serious in spiritual life, we should at least chalk out a plan that let me work on it. Let me work on it that I gradually, more and more, step by step, I become free from the lower tastes and habits, so that I can even step into higher realms that I have not been aware of that they exist. So I don't know what kind of person you are, but I can speak for myself. I don't want to practice a spiritual life just, how can we call it? Only, in German, we would use the word like only with the half of our heart. Yeah, I want to practice a spiritual path with all my heart, because ultimately that is our relationship to God, to give our whole heart to Him, and not just half of our heart, and the other part is still engaged, or as we use the word, surrendered to material levels. So if you are satisfied with such a half-hearted spiritual life, then it might be at this particular point of time, it might be your path. But I would recommend that if you really want to experience this, what Srila Prabhupada called stay high forever state, then at one point we have to be aware that at least at the moment of death, I want to be rid of all these lower addictions and habits. So that would be one answer. And regarding the point what you make about culture, my grandmother also told me, well, I appreciate your vegetarianism, but in Germany, this is our culture. We always used to eat meat. So there is nothing wrong in eating meat. It is our culture. My parents did it, my grandparents, all the generations, they eat meat. So I thought about that argument, and I told her one day, we had the same discussion again, and I told her, okay, you experienced World War II, your parents experienced World War I, your grandpersons, there were also always wars in Europe, in Germany. So as meat eating is part of your culture, in the same way, having wars, experiencing the ugly faces of wars is also your culture. And maybe there is a connection. So she became a little thoughtful. So I don't know about South Africa, but I would tell my Black South African grandma, in case she presented such an argument, I would ask her, I'm not so aware of South African culture, but I guess that if that is true, that South Africa is a place where meat eating was always a custom, I can pretty much imagine that fights amongst clans and or other wars were also a custom in South Africa. Am I right?
Oh, that was the end. Okay.
We hope that answered the question. And if it didn't, Sabyasachi Prabhu also left a comment in the chats that is very helpful that you may read. Yeah, so we hope that does. And we ran out of time. We were way past time. So thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much for the session.
Much. Thank
it
you
was
so
very
much.
informative. And thank you all for attending. And now I'll just run through a couple of announcements. The Prabhu can be found online on Instagram under the handle @Shiva_Param, or on Facebook @p.t_rabe, where you can find various links to his sites, as well as @VedaVox on YouTube. Kindly visit, like, and share and follow WuSA on social media platforms. That includes Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube @WuSA108. That's @WuSA108. Help us to get to 1,000 follows and subscriptions and more. We thank you for your support. And our morning japa sessions are on and happening every single morning from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. in standard South African time. Details around the daily program will be communicated in the WuSA Weekly WhatsApp group. You can join the WuSA Weekly WhatsApp group via the link www.wusawhatsapp.com. wusa.online to receive regular activity updates and communications. The link will also be shared in the chat panel. This is for quick announcements, and it is only admins can share and send messages. And our book club, the books are the basis book club, is up and running. And join in on the association every single Thursday evening for a jam-packed reading and sharing of realization sessions via Zoom. And at the heart to heart Vaishnava circle is happening every single Friday from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. South African Standard Time with Her Grace Mother Raja Lila via Zoom. Visit www.wusa.online to find out more and join the WuSA Weekly WhatsApp group to keep updated and participate in these exciting programs. Keep an eye out for our progressive CKC Cubed Creative Krishna Conscious Content Creators Program coming soon, an international collaborative effort through Quiddity Concept Magazine via our Artists Helping Artists Network, a preaching through empowerment initiative. You are welcome to join in on the ongoing campaign discussions every single Wednesday as shared on the WuSA website at www.wusa.online or campaigns/campaigns as we work towards developing ideas geared towards exclusively sustainable change. You can also visit change.org and follow our campaign title, Allow Devotees of ISKCON South Africa a Voice in Solving Existing Racial Imbalances, to properly familiarize yourself with the WuSA effort. On that note, a quick update on the fundraiser for the WuSA Preaching Initiative. A few items have been ticked off the WuSA wish list, and the WuSA House Yoga Studio is now operational. But unfortunately and sadly, due to the latest COVID-19 restrictions, all classes will proceed online via Zoom. I repeat that, all classes will proceed online via Zoom, not in person, because of the latest COVID-19 restrictions. Kindly visit www.wusa.online to download the wish list from our donations page on our site. For more information, you are welcome to contact us via email at admin@wusa.online. Thank you. Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you for your association.
Yeah, if you check in the chat, you can find Paramshreya Prabhu has put the link to the YouTube channel of Krishna West Germany, and it is in English, so don't worry, you can be able to enjoy the content there. Thank you so much, Paramshreya Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much. I wish you much success with your project, WuSA Wake Up South Africa.
Thank you, Prabhu. We'll be in touch.
They can hear us still, the visitors?
Yes.
So please support WuSA Wake Up South Africa.
Thank you.
Thumbs up from Germany.